Wanna know something I love? Disney. With their magic, their princesses, their cute animal sidekicks and all that. But fortunately, if that stuff is too lame for you, there's also plenty of this. Yeah, Disney has given us many scary and awesome moments, and most of them are caused by the villains. I love villains and I love Disney, so it only made sense that I would make a top 10 list about Disney villains. Now, I do know this has been done a million times before, but I promise you, my selection is not the same as everyone else. Usually I see people pick villains like Scar, Ursula, and Gaston and all those guys, but I prefer the more obscure villains mostly. I do of course have some popular favorites, but hopefully there will be at least one villain on this list that you haven't even heard of. For this list I'm judging things like the villain's personality, appearance, abilities, goal, and if it's worth mentioning, their defeat. If you're a villain, you have to die with style. So let's get started. These are my top 10 villains that the glorious people at Disney have spawned over the years. Jafar. This is a villain that in my opinion starts out awesome and then gets worse and worse as the movie goes on. At first he is a threatening character, the kind you don't want to mess with. Just look how unsettling he is.
You are late.
1,000 apologies, oh patient one.
You have it then.
But then he gets lamer and lamer. Most of the time he serves as a comic relief, and I really don't like villains that are used to make the audience laugh. I like those that make the audience scream. He also has little to no backstory, even though I can picture a flashback or something explaining how he earned the Sultan's trust. And once he gets the lamp and becomes super powerful, he just gets completely silly. However, he does gain points for his cool outfit, his use of magic, I love it when villains know magic, and the fact that he transforms into a giant snake at the end of the movie. Turning into a huge monster is always a good thing. It also allows us more violent battles and death scenes, seeing how they're technically not people anymore and therefore it's okay to get brutal. Look, blood! The Ghost of Christmas Future. There are a lot of movies based on A Christmas Carol, and this one is my favorite. A lot of people criticize it for being so dark, but I praise it for being so dark. For those who didn't know, I love movies that are dark and threatening, especially kids' movies. Ironically, the things you see in dark kids' movies are often worse than in horror movies. And that's good, getting scared is healthy for kids. When I heard about this movie, I was not expecting such a frightening take on Charles Dickens' classic story. If you put together A Christmas Carol, Disney, and Jim Carrey, you're probably expecting something like this. But, you know, with Jim Carrey. What I got when I watched it was a pleasant surprise. I mean, one of the first things you see in the movie is a corpse. Let's put that next to the classic Disney opening. Yeah, they don't quite fit together, do they? But I digress. After seeing a corpse, an overall dark atmosphere, a ghost having his jaw torn off, and two disturbing Christmas ghosts, I kept thinking to myself, okay, that was the part of the movie that is usually relatively friendly. Now what about the ghost that is supposed to be intimidating? And I was not disappointed. Just look at how they introduced the character. That is brilliant, like something straight out of a nightmare. An endless empty room, no sounds but the ticking of a clock, and then this ghost takes form from Scrooge's shadow. I actually think the shadow part is pretty clever, seeing how Scrooge and the two previous ghosts are all played by Jim Carrey. It kind of makes the ghost a part of Scrooge, and the third ghost literally is a part of him. Unfortunately, there isn't much character to the ghost. He never speaks, so he has little to no personality. Though his lack of dialogue makes him even more intimidating. I actually love how he never talks, just points at stuff. Also, the other versions of the Ghost of Christmas Future that I have seen are just showing Scrooge how bad his future is going to be, and then it all builds up to the grave scene. But this ghost goes further. He is trying to kill Scrooge several times. No, scratch that, he is playing with Scrooge. We quickly come to understand that this ghost can't do anything. He's just tormenting his victim to emphasize the thing he is showing. The silence, the cool design, and the frequent teasing is what makes this one of my favorite villains, mainly for being so frightening. I sure hope it doesn't show up at my place next Christmas, because then I'm convinced he would force me into loving that obnoxious holiday. Shan Yu. My problem with this guy is that there is surprisingly little to him. We don't know his motivation, not much of his personality, and it doesn't even appear that much. Mulan is a movie that puts an unusual amount of focus on the heroes, which is understandable, but I wish they would have given Shan Yu some more screen time. He may not have gotten much development, but every time he appeared he created such a sinister atmosphere. This is a villain who knows he's evil and he's loving every minute of it. Most of the movie is happy and upbeat, he always makes things evil just by existing. I think this scene best shows the difference between most of the movie and his parts. He sure is a mood killer, huh? He's also unusually, well, evil. While most Disney villains lock people up or something like that, he simply kills anyone in his path, and it doesn't matter if it's necessary or not.
How many men does it take to deliver a message?
One.
He's also ridiculously strong and persistent. It was fun to see him crush through walls as if they were paper in the third act. And let's not forget how he survived an avalanche. He's simply a ruthless, evil badass, and that's good. He could have been more, but as he is, he deserves this spot on the list. 0. I know what you're thinking. Isn't this just a Scar ripoff? Well, probably. But it's a ripoff done better. Even though Scar is a popular favorite, I never really liked him. He was a little too silly for my taste, and his goal to be king is not exactly something unheard of. Also, he made too many stupid mistakes.
Kill him.
You know, you could just have snapped his neck just now.
I killed Mufasa. No! Murderer! No, Simba, please.
How did you not see that coming? Zira, however, is a much more sinister character. Her very name means hate, and she lives up to it. Unlike Scar, she isn't driven by lust for power, but she's driven by lust for blood. A devoted follower of the deceased Scar, she wants Simba dead above everything else. She's so blinded by hate that she barely shows any affection for anyone, even her own children. Though she does care about them, even though she rarely shows it, which makes her rare since most Disney villains seem incapable of showing love. She also has more of a backstory than Scar. In his case, we only knew that, well, he is Mufasa's brother and he wants to be king. Zira actually has a past, and it ties in with the first movie, which is always a good thing for sequels. She was a follower of Scar and blamed Simba for his death, though she was actually supposed to be Scar's mate so that her son Kuvo would have the birthright to claim the throne, thus making more sense why Zira tried to make him the ruler all the time. I think this would have been better. The reason they removed it, and I can understand that, is that the love story between Kuvo and Kiara wouldn't be as family friendly seeing how they would be related. But screw it, I'm gonna say Zira is Scar's mate anyway because it makes the story better. The love story is sickening as it is, a little incest won't make it worse. Also, what's wrong with putting such a thing in a family movie? I mean, it's an activity for the family. Thank you. I wrote that myself. Thank you. I love just how spiteful she is. She doesn't seem to care much about capturing the throne and sees it as more of a side quest. But the scene I really like that shows how consumed with hatred she is at her death scene. She's about to die and the heroine is trying to save her. For most, this will be the turning point where the villain realizes it's better to be good. But not Zira, oh no. She can't set her hatred aside even when her life depends on it. If that wasn't spiteful enough, how about this? Did you know that in the original version, Zira wasn't only supposed to refuse Kiara's help but even commit suicide?
I'll help you.
It was removed because it was too adult. Is it just me, or are the scenes that are removed for that reason always the best? She may be a ripoff, but she is twice the villain Scar ever was. I'm sorry, I just had to. I don't think I will ever get an opportunity like that again. Anyway, something wicked this week counts is a Disney movie that was forgotten because it was live action and unusually scary. A shame really, because it is a pretty good movie. And one of the reasons why is the villain, Mr. Dark. Talk about a man who can be threatening without even trying. He is the leader of a carnival where people can have their dreams fulfilled. The only catch is that you have to join the carnival as a staff member. Oh, and you also lose something that you used to have. For instance, if you want to be pretty, boom, now you're pretty. But you're also blind, so you'll never know what you look like. Tough luck. What makes Mr. Dark scary though is not only that he's basically the devil since it tempts people into making deals with him, but it's just his overall behavior and his power. It is clarified that he has magical powers, but we don't know just how powerful he is. Unlike villains like Jafar, he never overuses his powers to show off, it's more like he is not using them enough. He magically appears in a room on one occasion and he can magically alter his tattoos, but he never does something very impressive. This subtlety results in a mystery. Just how strong is he? Can he breathe fire, conjure up a storm, or is he really using his full power and is in fact not as strong at all? All I know is that when he does use his magic, things get creepy, like when he fills a room with spiders. Jonathan Pryce makes an excellent job of bringing this character to life. He is constantly acting as if he has a lot of grief and or anger trapped inside of him, trying to control himself. Just listen to his trembling voice, it sounds like he is in pain or trying to keep himself from killing someone.
Now, 39, fine year. Still young, 39.
I like his goal too. He's the kind of villain who just wants to watch the world burn. Or as he describes it, he feeds on others' misery. He also has some strange side goal about making one of the main characters his son or something, and I really understood that part. Oh, and he also gets a pretty gruesome death. Earlier in the movie we see a magical carousel that can make you younger or older depending on which way it spins. Mr. Dark gets stuck in the carousel when it's malfunctioning, thus being electrified while also aging to death. Now that is dying in style. Trapped in a broken carousel and dying of old age. By the way, is it weird that this isn't even the first time I've seen that happen? Dr. Facilier. When I heard about the plot for The Princess and the Frog, I facepalmed when I heard they would have a voodoo priest to be the cause of it all. But it turned out awesome. Dr. Facilier has many good qualities. Firstly, he has something that many villains lack, charisma. If it hadn't been made obvious earlier that he was a villain, I would probably have assumed he was some kind of good guy who has happened to be involved with dark magic. What? Just because Disney has no good Disney characters using dark magic doesn't mean he couldn't have been one. Anyway, I like how he is comical but can still be taken seriously. I think The Princess and the Frog is one of those Disney movies that have some childish elements but still takes their audience seriously. I mean, Dr. Facilier is dealing with evil voodoo spirits trading souls for power. That's not really kids friendly. His powers are also really cool. They have their limits, which is good, but when he does use his magic, it's something to see. He also has awesome card skills and a kick-ass song. And there's his shadow. I love the idea of his shadow having a mind of his own and serving as his sidekick, but my one complaint is that I wish it would be more attached to him. There are too many scenes where it's just floating idly. And finally there's his death scene. I love that part. Imagine the panic he must have felt, knowing he is unable to escape his fate and his own minions are turning on him. You don't even know his ultimate fate. Is he being tortured by the Loa for all eternity? Did they consume his soul? What happened? We'll never know. We only know that he was an awesome villain from beginning to end. NOS 4A2. I really don't like TV shows based on Disney movies. They always manage to ruin the movie, and Buzz Lightyear Star Command is no exception. Some episodes were good, but they had an annoying habit to get too stupid and shove some forced life lesson down your throat. One good thing about it though is one of the new villains. When I say robot space vampire, you might think it sounds stupid, but it's actually pretty awesome. This character takes everything iconic about vampires and combines it with futuristic technology. For instance, instead of blood, he feeds on energy. I also love his design. He has a classic monocle you can see on many of the older vampires, he has a pointy shoulders, he has a cape, he has drill fangs, it's simply every iconic vampire trait put together, exaggerated and robotified. He also has an impressive set of powers. Just by biting, he can control any machine, meaning that he can enslave robots or even take control of space station with a bite. Then there's his ability to use his overload of energy to fire energy blasts, his awesome wings he uses to fly, and the close combat skills. He's one of the few who can take down Buzz Lightyear in one-on-one combat, which is apparently a big deal. Oh, and without biting, he can also hypnotize robots into doing his bidding. He's practically a god among machines. Then there's his personality, again perfect for a vampire. He is driven only by his desire to feed and he's very arrogant. Even though he was created by Zerg, he quickly abandons him and becomes his own master. He is also very vengeful, not letting anyone who has gotten in his way to escape his revenge. And he has an awesome voice as well.
Zerg led me to believe that you were a foe to be reckoned with. He overestimates you.
And a cool vampire roar. That's also what he does. Now keep in mind that he's a minor villain. In the first episode when he appears, he takes control of Star Command, then he turns a canteen into a deadly super weapon, then he kills a ton of robots, and then he finally, all in one episode, conquers Planet Z and turns all organic life in the galaxy into his robot slaves. You know, almost what Zerg did in the movie, just a lot faster. Speaking of Zerg, what have you done lately, Emperor of Evil?
Even as we speak, another crop of vegetables is being pumped full of monster-making mutagen. Just think of all those children afraid to eat their vegetables. The nutritional devastation will make future generations weak and easy to conquer, as well as painfully irregular.
You're lame. Anyway, Nosferatu is also the only character in the show, at least that I know of, who is permanently killed off. And in a quite brutal fashion, I might add. No, don't die, you're too awesome, and you deserve a cooler death than that. So remember, if you're going to make a modern take on vampires, don't make them sparkling sissies. Make them
Galaxy conquer death machines.
I need you to build this weapon. How long will it take?
At least a day, maybe 2.
You have 10 minutes.
Oh, so badass. Maleficent. Come on, I had to include her. She is one of the most iconic Disney villains in existence. And for good reason. She is the perfect portrayal of the classic Dark Lord. Or, well, Dark Lady. She is evil and powerful and she makes sure everyone knows it. Just look at her awesome entry. Her goal is pretty cruel too. She's assigned to fulfill a curse she placed on a child just because she wasn't invited to a party. I mean, what would have happened if she did get an invitation? Would she have mingled nicely with the guests and given the princess a gift as well? I don't think so. She knew she wouldn't be invited and just wanted a reason to curse a child. By the way, have you ever wondered what the third fairy was going to give Aurora? She was probably going to give her an interesting personality.
I know you. I walked with you once upon a dream.
Yes, you can sing and have fancy looks. Anything else? Thought so. No wonder you're one of the least favorite Disney princesses. Maleficent also has an awesome design. Her outfit really screams, I am evil. And as I mentioned before, I like villains that use magic. And she uses magic a lot. And it's awesome. I don't really like Sleeping Beauty to be honest, but the scenes with Maleficent are epic. Especially the climax. This is one of my favorite parts of any Disney movie. We got the intense, amazing music, Maleficent casting everything she's got, and who could ever forget the climax of the climax?
Now shall you deal with me, O Prince, and all the powers of hell!
Did she just say hell? In a Disney movie? The awesomeness meter just keeps rising! As if all the spellcasting, epic music and a freaking dragon wasn't enough, she also gets a pretty cool death scene. Just like Nosferatu, she deserved something cooler, but at least this one contains blood. Red. Congratulations, son, you're a murderer now! Now go get your reward, kissing a sleeping 16-year-old. And that's Maleficent for you. She truly deserves her title as the mistress of all evil. Judge Claude Frollo. The Hunchback of Notre Dame is one of my favorite Disney movies. Why? Because it's one of those animated movies that is more for adults. I enjoyed it as a kid, but I never really understood it. Now I see just how evil the entire movie is. It involves racism, religion, lust, and even more no-nos for family films. And I love it! That, as well as the intense action scenes and the epic soundtrack. I cannot express enough how much I love the epic soundtrack. This was also the first Disney movie where the hero doesn't get the girl. That's right, this movie introduced many children to the concept of the friend zone. Now, with such a sinister story with so many elements that will make parents grab their children and run, who will be the villain to crown this evil? Well, only one of the most evil Disney characters to ever walk the earth. What I like about Frollo is how realistic he is. Men like him have existed and still do, but back in his time these kind of people had much more power. Like he has, he's practically the ruler of Paris. And unlike many Disney villains, he doesn't think of himself as evil. He thinks he is the only good person in a city full of corruption, which also adds to his realism, because very few people in history has ever seen themselves as evil. Usually they just think, I am good, they are evil. Hitler thought it was good, but we don't think so. I hope. And I think few would call Frollo good. He kills gypsies just because they are gypsies, and then he is driven insane with lust. Isn't that rare? A Disney character's motivation is lust. A very brave move by Disney if you ask me. Everything about him is just so evil. In the first few minutes of the movie he kills a woman and attempts to do the same with her baby, but then instead raises it and manipulates the baby into becoming a servant. His crimes are so many, and as the movie progresses and he loses more and more of his sanity, he just goes further with his evil ways. To the point where he doesn't even care about his precious religion anymore. I love the climax of the movie where he has finally lost it completely. Just look at him, that is obviously a madman. He ultimately dies the classic Disney death, falling to death, but it's made slightly cooler than usual. What even happened? Was the Gorgle possessed by Satan all of a sudden? Was Frollo seeing things? Who cares? It fell into a lake of molten copper, and that's awesome! The Horned King. Most call the Black Cauldron the black sheep of Disney movies. Personally, I would say that title belongs to the Tinkerbell movies, the Bad Sequels, High School Musical and all those movies, though I still see why this one failed. The story is unoriginal, the characters have very little depth, and most of them literally pops in without any introduction. But if there is one good thing that everyone can agree on, it's that this movie has an awesome villain. Now where do I even begin with this guy? How about the most obvious part, his looks? He is a freaking skeleton, and he still has skin. Dried green skin. And red eyes. That villain has given countless of children nightmares just by looking the way he does. And I don't know what he looked like when he was alive, but he was certainly not a human. I mean, look, he has claws and fangs. And horns. Those aren't some dumb headgear, they are attached to his head. So he's probably some kind of undead demon. Now, what is his goal? Simple really. He wants to create an army of the undead and destroy all life. Yes, he basically wants to start on a zombie apocalypse, and that is cool. His personality always gets me. He doesn't really show much emotion at all, he's usually speaking in the exact same tone. Oh, and did I mention that he is voiced by the amazing John Hurt?
You are the keeper of this oracular pig.
That gives you some free bonus points, my dear Horned King. Anyway, his lack of emotion makes him really intimidating. And rather than showing what he is feeling by being angry or what ordinary people does, he demonstrates his state of mind through actions. Like breaking stuff. Or executing people. The only time he displays emotion is in the end, when he finally snaps. And that is freaky. Oh, and I almost forgot, just like most characters he just randomly pops out of nowhere. But he does it in style. Watch this. Now that is how you announce your presence to someone. As for his powers, he rarely does anything by himself. Though he is shown to be a powerful wizard, and that is of course a big plus. And if he isn't awesome enough for you, how about his minions? Sure, he does have a really intimidating goblin and some stupid humans, but he also has a few dragons, and of course an army of the undead.
beloved warriors have come to life.
Enjoy your nightmares. Oh, and did you know that there are several deleted scenes surrounding these so-called Cauldronborn? There's one scene where a guy melted to death, and another where one of the Cauldronborn decapitated someone. What the heck, Disney? Why did you cut that out? I wanted to see it! And he also has an unusually nasty death scene. Again, there was a deleted scene about this where the main character pushes him to his death, but since that was apparently inappropriate, the Horned King instead practically kills himself. Now when I say push, some of you might think he falls to his death, but that is way below his dignity. Here, watch how this King of the Undead meets his fate. Nasty, huh? By the way, remember what I said about his horns being attached to his head? There's a proof. So if Maleficent is the mistress of all evil, then the Horned King is the master of all evil. There we go, those are my favorite Disney villains. I hope you enjoyed and that there was at least one Disney villain you didn't recognize. Otherwise, I have failed you. Anyway, leave some suggestions for future top 10s in the comments, and if you want you can share your favorite villains and tell if you agree with my picks. See you around!